Linked Out back with another podcast. Today we have Alisa Jacobs, founder of Loop Studios and a Web3 advisor. How are you doing today?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Blessed. We just had our Christmas party with Janae Aiko, Ways Foundation, with Project and a bunch of other sponsorships, and you were there. So what was your, as an outsider, what was your opinion on the whole party?
Man, I thought it was incredible. I thought that it was packed, but it had such a great flow and energy. There was so many gifts. I know Waze is going to make a huge contribution.
We had like 2,000 gifts in the U-Haul. Wow. It was insane. It was actually insane. But it was our second annual toy drive. So next year, I'm thinking it's going to be way bigger. Let's get started where you created Loop Studios.
Yeah, so Loop Studios is a change agency. We do marketing and innovation and work with big brands from Activision Blizzard on Call of Duty League to Diageo to helping with the launch of Local
You work
17.
with Activision?
Yeah, we helped launch the league.
Really?
Yeah, for Call of Duty.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, honestly,
how did you secure it with Activision?
It was honestly incredible. I mean, obviously they got bit of a bad rap over the summer, but my experience was with a friend and mentor who at the time was a CMO that I'd worked with at Diageo as well, who went on to run DC Comics and then Adidas. And when we came in, we really just came in to focus on influencer and making it cool, right? Like gaming was popping off. You had obviously FaZe Clan and 100 Thieves and some of the cool kids in the crew, but they really wanted to make esports more normalized and more relevant. And so it evolved really quickly where we ended up taking on all of the entertainment PR and getting really more involved in the project. But it was just super fun. We would do like hype battles with everyone from King Batch to Michael B. Jordan to NBA players to rappers.
Really? You worked with King Batch?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's dope. So when did you start all this?
So, before it was Loop Studios, Loop was First Mind Media and Marketing, and before it became truly an agency with an incredible partner, Antoinette Williams, who is now CEO, it was basically my freelance. So back in 2012, I launched it. It was like February 15th or something as like a Valentine's Day present to myself to do what I love. And throughout all of my other jobs and iterations of my career, I still was doing basically a side hustle, right? But branding, advising on all different kinds of marketing, experiential influencer, PR. And
you were the head of this, running this all.
Yeah,
as a woman, I think that would, it's difficult as an entrepreneur and, being a woman as yourself, like that's, it's pretty hard, especially in the space.
Well, and female founders, I think, have like an 80% fail rate or something like that.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Challenging.
Yeah, so like what was the challenges that you went through, being a woman in the space, being an entrepreneur, trying to run, the head of this company?
Being the founder of an agency was a really incredible experience and continues to be an incredible experience, but it's challenging because when you first start anything, not just as a woman, just as a creator entrepreneur, there's so much that you don't learn. And I did go to college. I did have great access and education, all the things that you think will help you out. Yeah. But the truth is, no one's teaching you the IRS and tax laws.
Oh no, never.
You financial literacy.
And that's what the crazy thing about this school industry is they don't teach you any of that stuff.
Right.
And I'm a junior. I dropped out junior year, so I never graduated, and I never went to college, obviously. So I don't know what it's like to go to college and stuff like that. But being a young entrepreneur, it's difficult. It's real difficult. And being a woman, it's 10 times more difficult. And so you overcoming obstacles and really building a company out and building a team is actually like really impressive.
Thank you.
And how old were you when you started this?
I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah,
when it first started.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so like growing up, did you have like this entrepreneur mindset? You wanted to, you had a vision of running your own company, being the head of things?
Yeah, I think it was less of an association with being the boss and more about being a builder.
Yeah.
So even as a kid, I had like 3 companies before the age of 12 that made more money than I think I made in my first couple of years out of college. And it was really,
what?
It was really random stuff.
What was your first company?
Which was first? I think Dare to Dream Cards Incorporated was the
Dare
first
to Dream
one.
Cards Incorporated was your first company.
Which my mom still has the 3-inch binder of all these like wannabe Hallmark cards when I saved up my allowance for Adobe or what was it? Print Shop Deluxe or something like that, which is way before your time.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, and so I thought I wanted to be a writer and a copywriter and work for Hallmark. And so, I was this little kid running around on my bicycle with a little basket selling cards to neighbors at a premium.
And how much would you sell them for?
They were like a couple dollars each, and then it would be.
But you were 12 years old doing this.
I was 8 years old doing it.
8 years old, and you were selling Hallmark cards.
Dare to dream.
Dare to dream. That's impressive. Yeah. So did your mom was she an entrepreneur?
No, what's interesting is, farther back, like my grandfather was an entrepreneur after spending 12 years in leading PR at Shell Gas. My grandfather led PR for 12 years at Shell Oil and Gas, and then started his own company with a friend. But, my mom was an educator. My dad's in social work, both recently retired. And my dad, of course, spent all of 2 minutes retired to meet his grandchild and, travel the world. And now he's an interim CEO again. But
wow. Okay, so you come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Workaholics,
yeah. And so speaking of entrepreneurs, I know we spoke, briefly on this off the podcast, but let's get into what happened to FTX. And speaking of entrepreneur SBF, actually insane what Sam did. So he literally created a fraud, the biggest fraud in history. And so, how do you feel about what happened to FTX? Because people lost millions of dollars. Right. People lost their houses, and this is devastating. And this happened at the worst time of the year, Christmas. Right. And so, for people to, lose money like this, and for him, he finally got arrested. He's on an island, arrested, not in the U.S. And it was funny because he had an interview like hours before his arrest. Yeah. He had an interview of he had all these questions like, do you know anything what happened to the funds? The billions of dollars that's missing. And he's like, well, I don't know any. I don't recall any of. I have to ask other people. Right. He had no answers to what he was talking. What was asked.
No accountability.
Yeah, right. and it's sad because he knew the amount of trouble he was going to get into.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy how they didn't arrest him to begin with, because it was obvious. He was running this whole entire thing. Right. I think it was it was a span of 4 days. The company lost was it $8 billion or something like that? Right. It was insane. But how do you feel about this? How do you feel about Sam ruining people's lives?
I think what's so interesting about the entire thing is how the global audience was duped, right? It literally felt like I was watching Inventing Anna as all the press started coming out and the media apology circuit and everything, blaming the ex-girlfriend, all these wild rumors about polyamorous orgy cults and where did the money go? I mean, we're watching a giant soap opera unfold, and not only right before Christmas, but in a really tough time in American and global history.
Exactly. We're going through
we have
recession.
Warfare happening. We are in a recession. There's unbelievable troubles and trauma and tribulations that people are already going through. So for the financial hit, I just can't even imagine. But I think what was also really disheartening to me was, like I said, I come from a family of philanthropists and social workers and community leaders, and everything I've ever done in entertainment is in large part for social service and civil work as well. And so all of the weaponizing of do good, right? There was so much based in this fraudulent aura and persona of the champion for philanthropy and charity and all of these things. And did he possibly give real money that helped real people? Of course.
Sure.
But the intention was not
But that was just to cover up, what he was doing 100%. Behind the scenes.
And tax write-offs.
And he was funding his other company that he made in 2017. And that's that's insane, and getting rid of taxes and all that stuff. Crazy. Wow. And so for him to actually get away with this for years and years, and FTX be one of the biggest exchanges in the world, and then you had celebrities promote the brand. Tom Brady.
Tons.
You had the number one athlete, football athlete in the world promote this brand. So I'm just curious on what Tom Brady is thinking. He put his face on FTX.
Right.
And now this all happened, and it's like crazy because now it's like, okay, where's the trust in like Web3 now?
That's fair, but I think that like there's always going to be bad actors in every industry, but there's also going to be those that are the leaders and the stewards and the shepherds of the space. So I think it's easy, especially for folks not in Web3 that are just sort of crypto curious or like figuring out NFTs, to write it off and be like, told you so. This is some bullshit.
So what advice would you give to everyone right now that's, you know, they were interested in getting into Web3, and then this happened, and now they have no trust in putting their money in anywhere in crypto or NFTs.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give for people to, you know, be more, okay, like this happens in the industry, you know, it's just this is a space that nobody knows 100% yet. So what advice would you give those type of people that's listening in, you know, that, you know, wait, hold on, you can trust, you know, you just got to do your research. You have to actually put the time in.
You have to do your own research, and you also have to invest in things that you believe in, right? Especially with NFTs and projects, it's the long game. It's not just a quick flip, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's finding the folks that you do trust and you do believe in, doing your own research, doing due diligence, but also knowing that it's a calculated risk. At the end of the day, any financial institution is a calculated risk. Anything to do with art is a calculated risk. So when we think about it and we think about where Web3 is going, I think it's like saying, can I trust the internet? Right? There's a lot you can't trust on the web. But
100%.
a couple years from now, I don't think we're going to be referring to Web3 as Web3 or NFTs as NFTs.
Yeah.
It's just
digital assets.
It's an expansion and an extension of brand and experience and community.
Yeah, and currently I'm learning off-chain and on-chain NFTs. I don't know if you know anything about that.
A little bit. I was before
private
Twitter
chain and public chain.
shifts,
So basically, like all of the NFTs that we see is on the public chain, and some are on private chain. And I'm not 100% knowledgeable on this, but this is what I'm learning, and it's like crazy learning like nodes and hashes, and I'm getting to all that, you know, that good tech stuff. Because like the thing is, like people only see Web3 as like, oh, like invest in a crypto coin, invest into an NFT, and not into the technology, like behind it, what happens behind the scenes. And that's what I'm like so fond of. I'm like, no, like how is this revolutionizing the world? It's not a picture, it's not the picture, it's not the coin, it's the technology right behind it that's backing in, and that's gonna give everyone ownership of their assets, your personal data.
I think it's about ownership, but it's also about community and culture and ecosystem of like commerce in tech, right? So anything that we have offline or off chain, we're going to see in this Web3 ecosystem. And so it's things as simple as JPEGs and art, to licensing rights for music and democratizing the middle class of the music industry, to things like community and being able to have memberships and experiences that can really connect and expand. That's not just like a, you know, code in your wallet or a fob or something, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But I think a lot of our data is going to be there too. So do I want to have my medical records and everything and my college degree or something up for everyone to see? Maybe, maybe not. But there needs to be a lot of privacy and kind of securities around how we utilize this technology, and as owners of the assets, but also it's just where it lives too, right? So it's like the Dewey Decimal System or the inventory rack, and the rest of it becomes the commerce, the currency, the way that we exchange, but it's a lot of it's a tracking system too. It's a ledger.
And speaking of ledger, did you see the new Nano Lex? What do you think of that? That's so sick.
I think it's dope.
It's so sick. I think that's gonna be how you normalize it into, you know, globally.
Yeah.
Because like the physical, like the little ones, like it's kind of hard. Okay, I don't understand it, but it's like a phone. Okay, here, you own your digital assets on this thing. It's a phone, like, you know, basically, I don't know. But anyways, so being an advisor in the space, you've been doing this for a long time, and so tell me, like, who you worked with, like what companies, what's your biggest company you've worked with? What's the biggest celebrity or influencer you advised for? Who?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you mean Web3 specifically.
Yeah, Web3.
You know, the most recent that was really fun to work on was one with WME and Alex Rodriguez, and backed by Atomic Ventures. And what was cool about it was this AI enhanced kind of tech first production company JumpCut was launching these NFTs for the first time. One was a gamified NFT that was sort of Mortal Kombat Tekken vibes, and the other is basically a digitized writer's room for women in film and television. And so it was very cool because it wasn't just about the big names. Like, I've had the pleasure of working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood in my past life and current life with branding, right?
Who did you work with?
I mean, everyone from Diddy and DJ Khaled to The Rock and Ellen DeGeneres to the Kardashians.
You worked with the Kardashians?
We did quite a bit with 1942 and their celebrations over the years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what's been cool, though, is like it's not just about the biggest names now, because I've been very fortunate in that, right? But in Web3, I think it's less about the level of celebrity and it's more about the level of authenticity and relevancy.
Yeah.
And so when we were building out influencer networks to an extent, right, it was really scaled and tiered in a way because it was who really is a part of this community and culture. And so, you know, everyone from like Baron Davis, Tiffany Haddish to, like I said, Alex Rodriguez, and major athletes, musicians, entertainers, writers, but also like Web3 native influencers. What we're seeing with the influencer world is that it's shifting, and we're actually trusting. We talked about trust a lot, right? We're trusting those that actually live and breathe it and are building in it and are the creators and are the founders, not just the funders.
I think there's not a ton of them.
Yeah.
Not a ton, because I'm in the influencer world and there's just not many influencers that I'm around that I could talk Web3 with, like, at all.
Right.
Like nothing about digital assets at all. And I'm more into the tech side of things, so like it's even more complicated.
Right.
So like even when I'm like talking to my fans on live stream, I'm telling them I'm in this space and they have no idea.
Right.
And I'm just speaking on like the tech side of things, and there'll be like a person that comes in that might know a little bit, and I start like, oh, finally I could talk about this on live and stuff. And my fans are like commenting, what language is this?
Right.
And I'm like, guys, like, I'm telling you, I'm in another world. Like I'm basically like living two different lives because I have this influencer world over here, and we talk about life, deep stuff, content development, all that type of stuff in business. And then we come over here to Web3, and it's about technology, how can we revolutionize the world, and like the stuff we're talking about on the podcast. And it's like two different worlds, and it's like, how do I combine both together?
Right. Well, I think that's actually like my role, right? And when I'm working with companies in Web3 and brands and talent, a lot of it's education. So we talked about the
100%. Oh my God, yeah.
decentralization of institutions, right? It's not just financial institutions and the drama of FTX and the actual platforms and all of the different companies that are kind of popping up in the Web3 world. It's also the Web2 world, or the analog world, or every other aspect of culture and fashion and sports and music and entertainment. And so when you think about how do we cross over, I don't look at it as two separate worlds at all.
Really?
At all. I think that it's an education curve, and it's not a different industry. It's a utility or a roadmap, just like we use in the Web3 language or dictionary, that you have to translate, because it's all the same shit in the sense of how you transact money, how you buy things that you want, whether it's an experience or a good or a service, right? Where that proof of purchase is stored, and then how we can find out who owns what, right? Like a title to a car. And so you can translate Web3 not only in the language into almost any other industry, but also the application. And I think we'll see it in real estate, we'll see it in finance, we'll see it in education.
We're seeing everything, yeah.
But I actually think like one of the biggest things I'm working on right now is an accelerator for creators to find that bridge, and for both brands and founders and funders to really get into the space in ways that they understand it and can get edified too.
So when you say accelerator, is this a program? Is this a class?
Basically a school for entrepreneurs.
School for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So like Andrew Tate. No?
I wouldn't liken myself to Andrew Tate.
Okay. What's your thoughts on Andrew Tate? You wouldn't compare, what you're trying to do with your classes towards what Andrew's master class is at school. He has 100 programs, basically, on 100 tips on education. What's your thoughts on Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate, to me, is the loudest voice in the room a lot of times, right? And I think he's very opinionated, and I think that he looks for shock value and to disrupt. I believe in free speech. I'm not keen on a lot of censorship, so whether or not I agree with his opinion, I can appreciate people having them, right? not just as a woman, but as a human. I don't always agree with what he has to say or the way he has to say it, but I also don't throw the message out because I don't like how it's delivered. I don't throw the message out because I don't like the messenger. So I think there's times where he has really valid points and times where he sounds like he's in the 1950s, really aggressively. But for me, Lucid Vision, which is the company that is effectively going to be launching the podcast and the books and the School for Entrepreneurs, it's not about just being another mastermind or masterclass. It's finding that space to fill the gap between TikToks and TED Talks, and ultimately to have physical facilities for a kind of work-learn space. But I think that when we look at the decentralization of institutions, and we talk about DeFi and the financial institutions, we've talked about SBF and FTX and all of the acronym soups, right? All these different acronyms and all the alphabet soup that we have for all of these different things. For me, it's about how do we find ways to educate each other, because we're student teachers, right? We're all player coaches. And so if we're going to fill that space between TikToks and TED Talks, it also has to be ways to accelerate learning. Because if you want to be an expert, 10,000 hours, right?
10,000 hours, 100%, yeah.
But I strongly believe that of those 10,000 hours, some of those are burned hours. Some of those are inefficient hours. And so for me, I've been in 7 different industries in 15 years, and I wouldn't call myself an expert in all of them, but I'm pretty proficient. And the way I was able to accelerate my learning and my earning across different industries was always having mentors and always going to the best of the best.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%, because I mean, for me, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mentors at all. Like, especially in the business world, that, you know, my business partner is my mentor for 2 years, you know, shout out to Ty, you know, the boy, and
the best.
Yeah, the best. Like, and I honestly wouldn't be here because I was in the influencer world and I wanted to transition, but I didn't know how to actually make that gap. And I was a person that, you know, with my social media, I never needed help with content. Like, I knew, like, I could create my content every day, come up with ideas. Like, I know what my fans want. I could do it all myself. But in when you get to a level of like, okay, I want to grow, I want to create a mogul, then it's like, you got to get rid of your ego and be like, no, I need help. I need, you know, people that, you know, show me different perspectives.
We don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that one of the technology elements is the AI as well, right? So the idea of being able to accelerate creator entrepreneurship also means there has to be something along the lines of AI or other technology that can help accelerate learning and accelerate learning.
Yeah, so like for
for Lucid Vision, the idea is using AI-empowered technology to learn your learning style and functionally adjust based on how you're performing. Because when we're kids, we think about these things, right? Are you a visual learner? Are you a haptic learner? Are you an audio learner? But as adults, we're all taught the same way. The school system is for people that are good test takers or that can memorize and regurgitate information, not necessarily integrate or apply or understand it. So for comprehension, if you think like Leapfrog or Duolingo applied across industry for how do I build an infrastructure for a company as opposed to be a freelancer, we are glorifying ownership and equity, and we are glorifying entrepreneurship, and I love it. But we're not actually breeding a new generation of entrepreneurs. It's everyone wanting to be like, I don't have a boss, I don't have a job, but it's not scalable. Even for you, you could be making more money than any 9-to-5 on the planet doing the amazing influencer work that you've been doing, but you are bound by your billable hour. So if you can't have passive income or ways to extend and expand your brand, to build a bigger entity beyond yourself, to automate, to delegate, you will forever be bound by your hour. And even if you charged $1 million per hour, you're still limited to 24 million a day.
Wow.
No matter what you do.
Wow. Have you heard of static cash? Static income? I think it's static income.
Right. Yeah.
I just learned this. Like, literally someone on my TikTok, I was live, and this is the power of you know, being an influencer. You know, you're able to outreach to the world and meet like anybody. Yeah. So like, even on live, I'm like, I meet this guy and he's like, you know, one of the top gifters on TikTok. Okay. And this dude comes in my live stream. A whale, a huge whale, because he owns a crypto company, and he's in the whole space and he's anonymous. He doesn't like ever show his face or like anything. So he comes in and he's like talking about how he is in crypto and everything. I'm like, oh shoot, like I'm in a tech company and stuff. I do this and that. He was just telling me, I was like, okay, what's one tip you would give to an entrepreneur or anyone in my room right now that might want to be an entrepreneur or like an influencer? And he was like, make sure you have I believe it was static cash, and static cash is basically like if you own like a laundromat, like a recurring revenue, like a actual you're gonna gain this X amount a month, because even you're saying like, I mean, if you can make $1 million an hour, I mean, you can only make X. There's a cap. So like, how do you like spread out? And he was like, I had 7 businesses and they all failed because I didn't have reoccurring revenue, like an exact reoccurring revenue every month. And when I made a business with, that business model, he became a millionaire.
And the static cash concept is about the always on, the evergreen, right? That it's dependable, it's recurring. It's a form of passive income often, right? Because it's things that can make you money when you're not necessarily there. But it takes it one step farther, because you could also make passive money on merch or on, things that are not guaranteed to sell, but they'll sell when you're sleeping, right? So it's finding that balance too of like, what are you doing with your active hours? Also, what are you doing that like only you can do? Right? So I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, you have to wear all the hats initially, whether you're an influencer, a creator, or an entrepreneur in any field. But at a certain point, it's not the most efficient way to move.
No, it's not.
And so
you drain yourself out so mentally and physically.
Yeah. And you need to hire people that love doing what you hate doing, that are better at doing what you're not great at doing, and then have the fearlessness to actually delegate and train so that you can automate it when you're not there. Yeah.
And what I've had trouble with being an entrepreneur is accepting hiring or getting someone that does something that I hate doing. Because I have this mentality of like, I want to learn everyone's like, role and understand it. But I go too deep into it. And then sometimes I'm like, I go way too deep in it and I'm like taking over the role. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm doing like 3 different roles right now. I should just like relax, chill back, come back to where I'm supposed to be and hire someone to do this role, because, I'm like way too intense.
But I think you are right though, to learn all the facets of the business. Right?
I mean, and I think if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you are trying to run a company or anything you're doing, you should learn every single role. So if you hire somebody, you know
whether they're good or not.
If they're good or not. Exactly. I think that's like common sense, but a lot of people may not do that, and they're just like, all right, I have the money, I'll hire this person. But they could just be fucking around this entire time and not giving you the best quality work, and you wouldn't even know.
Well, I think having the money actually isn't always the best, because then you have more flexibility to kind of burn it, right? David John talks about this all the time, where like being a broke entrepreneur is actually a really positive thing, because you're smarter with the money. If you have more, you can lose more, right? And I think like when you're learning all the different aspects of the business, you become a superpower. But the idea of having to micromanage, even if you're better at it than the people you hire, because sometimes you will be, right? It still is a better use of their time and their dollar than yours, because if your dollar's worth $500, if your hour's worth $500 and someone else's hour is worth $100, and you're burning through 10, it might take them 20. The math still is mathing, right? And so it's having to kind of play the long game.
That's good. That's a good one. Oh, I didn't think about that. Wow. Whoa, that's good. Holy crap. Wait a minute. Damn, that's crazy.
I just pictured you as like a mind-blown emoji.
Holy crap. Damn. So yeah, in business, like, you have all these strategies. You have, that's what you learn as an entrepreneur, and you've been in this way longer than me. And so like,
Not you calling me old.
I know. I wasn't 8 years old, selling cars to people. So, you know what I mean? So I started working on a farm when I was like 9 or 10 years old. But I mean, I was an entrepreneur. I was working for someone else, and I didn't become an entrepreneur until I got into social media in 2000, like fully emerged like 2018. So that's just how long I've been, just said screw my jobs and everything. But now, like, I think a passion of mine being in Web3 now and in the influencer world is being able to have the power to show people the technology that's happening, even like with RTFKT and what they're doing with digital fashion is absolutely revolutionary. Like just simple, like what they did with the hoodies and how you just have the AR and it's just like pops up, you scan the code and it pops up the wings. Like that's how you normalize like everything. That's how you normalize like AR, because a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, like, oh, that's cool. That's so cool. What do I got? What do you do, mom? Mommy, just scan this code. Okay, code's done. Okay, now you have wings on your back. Done. But the tech side on side, it's this whole software. Learning that side is what I'm interested in. Because that's crazy. I think that's mind blowing.
Well, and when you talk about only being in it for a year, most of us and most of the self-proclaimed experts have been effectively in it for like a year and a half or a couple of years, because even if you're investing in crypto or Bitcoin in 2014, 2017, there's a lot of OGs in the space, but it changes so fast and so rapidly. It's just like social media, right? You could have been a Facebook genius, but when Instagram came out, or Twitter, rest in peace, question mark? I think like you have to relearn, right? And so I actually think if you take a month off from being on top of it, you have to like rebuild your knowledge base, because it's moving so fast and the technology is
I'm still learning all this. Like it's insane.
We'll forever
like
be learning, because it'll forever be changing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a foundation that everyone knows. And this is what's like so sick, because you could figure out solutions to problems right now, and those problems, you know, that are solved, that your company could be worth billions of dollars just from a simple solution. You know, in Web 2, you were the broom, like the broom. Like who came up with that idea? You know, that you came up with a simple idea to a problem, and now the person that made the broom is, you know, how rich are they? Like how much they've impacted the world in that aspect of like, you know, making it easier to sweep things up.
I think that's basically every invention ever, right? Like inventions are basically great solutions to common problems, right? And I think sometimes we don't think of something as innovative or new because it seems so obvious, like someone must have done it. But there's a lot of things that when you think about this new and cool idea, someone hasn't done it because they thought the same thing when they came up with it. Right? And I think like when we think about the future of Web3 and we think about the future of entrepreneurship in Web3, it really is about bridging the gap so that the engineers, the builders, the technicians of it all are really leading the charge.
And another way, you know, lastly to, you know, how to bridge the gap is gamification. Gamification. And everyone thinks gamification is just in gaming. It's really not. It's in every single thing. You know, I learned about gamification probably a month ago, like literally a month ago.
No way.
Yeah, I'm swear to God. Like Ty was like, you got to learn about gamification right now, because everyone was like, I'm not a gaming person. I don't really like games. So when we created our toy truck game and everything, you know, I thought it was cool. I just didn't know how it worked. And so, you know, Ty's like, you got to learn gamification. Like this is where you need to be. You need to learn this. And so I was like, oh, okay. So he sent me like this 32-page like article, like like crazy thing. And so I read the whole entire thing and I was like, whoa. I've been using this like even on my TikTok forever.
That's what I'm saying though. When you said you just learned about it, you just learned what it was, not how to do it.
I just became aware of it. And so many people are doing, you know, these things that we know about. They're just not aware of what it is.
Well, I think like even the identity around gaming, right? Like I helped launch a venture-backed company for diversifying gaming, right? So we had all women's collective. And the idea behind the All Women's Collective was less about just gaming and competition, but collaboration over competition and content. And so much of gaming is identity and identifying. So something like 49% of the world's gaming enthusiasts are women. 49%.
Wait, really?
Yes, 49% of the world's gaming enthusiasts are women. In Asia, it's a higher percentage, and in mobile, it's something like 70, almost 80%. And that's just those that self-identify. Most women and most people that don't consider themselves native gamers or like sweaty basement gamers wouldn't even check yes on that box, right? I wouldn't have. I thought I peaked at Mortal Kombat and like Mario Kart. And then a year later, I'm looking at my mom playing Wheel of Fortune on her iPad every day and being annoyed by the advertisements, so paying to skip the ads or to jump levels. I'm like, oh.
And Candy Crush, my mom was like obsessed with Candy Crush.
100%. But the gamification isn't just the game. The game is the game. The gamification is how you play the game, and some of the pay to play and all the different things around freemium models, or how you get tokens or skins, or so much of the gaming community started what we now call NFTs, but there's such a division of church and state between calling it an NFT, right? But in terms of microtransactions in game, or adding things like apparel or whatever, it is the OG, right? And so how you gamify anything, we were just talking about education. I actually think that the core and key to education in Web3 and beyond, and for entrepreneurs across the board, is gamification. It's why Duolingo or some of these how to learn apps are working, because it's fun and the interface is interesting, and you can win prizes.
And now with the new technology, it's play to earn. And so like, and the number one reason why I stopped gaming was because I was like, where's my time going to? You know, if I put 6 hours into what I'm passionate about, and it's making me money, and it's making me learn more, then I'm gonna put my time towards that, and I'm gonna stop like getting the PlayStation open and playing a game, because it's literally just wasting my time, and it's just giving me a dopamine rush. So when I learned about gamification and play to earn games, and everyone that's listening, if you don't know what play to earn is you play the game and you earn crypto, and you could turn that crypto into money.
It's a reward system.
But a reward system. And so like everyone, like, it's in the Philippines, like they're the number one like gaming over there, something like that.
In Asia.
Yeah. So I was like, whoa, like I can now use my time valuably if I go and want to play a game now, and even want to create a game, like the toy truck game. So like, I really want to create like a dope play to earn game that like
say the word.
I love. Like everyone loves, and and it's making people money. Like that's a difference. Like now
it really is the biggest difference.
It's crazy.
It's incentivizing, right? And that's where it shifts from gaming to gamification, because the game is the game. It's gaming, right? This is going to sound real meta real fast, but the game is the game. The gamification of the game is the play to earn. The gamification of the game is when you're competing with someone else, or the battle royales or whatever. The gamification of the game is the how, not just the what. And I think that when we think about entrepreneurship, when we think about the creator class and the creator economy, we have to think about the monetization, because although I would love to be as idealistic and esoteric as to think that everyone should just play and be free and money doesn't matter, the reality is we have bills to pay. And we are in the 1% of the world that actually gets to do what we love every day. And so if the goal, which is my mission and my vision, and I think yours in a lot of ways as well, is more people, all people, being able to do what they love and be paid to do what they love, it's really inspiring, because all creators are anyone with an imagination. So whether you're an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, an executive, a VC, a founder, whatever, you're a creator. And you're a creator entrepreneur if you are making money on your own in any capacity. So gamifying things where you can actually make money or earn some sort of status to be able to monetize it, that's the dream. Not just the American dream, that's the global dream, to actually get to do what you love with people you respect every day. I think we'd have world peace.
You're more of like a technical, analytical person, am I wrong? Or am I right?
I'm a weird hybrid. I'm probably equal parts creative and technical. I think I spent a lot of my career pretending I wasn't a creative, because I wanted to manage big budgets and be taken seriously as a woman in business, and make sure that all the ops and admin and logistics and stuff, that I could speak the language and also walk the walk, not just talk the talk. But realistically, to me, even the technical part is art. It is incredibly creative. It's building, it's architecture. And, I'm a brand strategist and a brand architect, and I look at that as not only helping launch new innovations into the world across different platforms, but what does it look like to live omni-channel, right? To me,
would you say omni-channel? What does that mean?
So omni, I'm also an etymology nerd, so the Latin root omni means world, all everything, all. So omni is all. So all channel just means not just multi-channel, but all channels. And so Web3 is just another channel in a way, right? And so if your brand, and you are a brand, so here's the piece that I actually do want to touch on. If you are a creator, you are a brand. If you have an imagination, you are a creator. Therefore, any of us with imaginations can be or create brands. I tend to work with Fortune 100 to 500 companies and help them kind of hold accountability as they enter new spaces and really focus on change management and cultural currency and communities. But I also work with a lot of artists and talent and startups on how to be bigger, right? And offline, and whether that's experiential, whether that's pairing and matchmaking these worlds together, as you said, because they're living a bit in silo at the moment. Yeah. I think what it looks like to be new media is just this. When we were adding the internet, when we were adding social media, when we were adding new channels to our data package, right? I think the bundled package just becomes more internets, more data, more places. And so to me, omni-channel just means existing in every channel, on every platform. And new media will always have something new to define, because what's new media today is not going to be new media tomorrow. It's old media, right? And so as we try to bridge the gap between kind of the analog world and the digital world and the realities, they have to coincide and they have to play together. So if you're building a brand as talent, which you've done an incredible job of,
thank you,
but also building a brand with Project and this incredible community that's being built for creators, for artists, for influencers, but really to have experiences together, and the events like the toy drive and the game and all of these things that are just like-minded, like gold, like sold folks, that is brand. Brand is simply, what's your point and what's your purpose? Why do I want to consume you? Why do I want to pay for you? And whether that's a good, a product, a service, or a person, whatever the noun is, how do you expand the brand? And I think that everyone listening should really think about it as, even inside of a company, I was always an entrepreneur. I've worked at agencies, I've worked at Fortune 100 companies. I worked at Diageo for over 5 years, leading culture and partnerships across Ciroc and Don Julio and De Leon, launched something like 10 innovations across flavor variants and new products. But inside, we were a really entrepreneurial team. It was almost like an agency inside of the belly of the beast, right? And in every job I've ever left, they've had to hire like 3 people to replace me because I'm nuts and I do a lot of different kinds of tasks like you, right? And so when I think about how do you build your brand? How do you start off or start over or start up? You have to be thoughtful and creative and really fearless in try stuff. Don't be afraid of learning a new language. Web3 is just a new language. And I think you've been a testimony to that in a lot of ways, why I love our offline conversations even more and nerding out, because we can speak the tech talk, but then we can also talk through all of the ways that implies and applies to the creator world, the influencer world, the brand development, the product development. Why do I care that something says Gucci or VCon?
Yeah.
Because these brands, and Gary is an incredible example of a brand, have put an identity attached, a sense of belonging, affinity, or value. So what's your value proposition? What's your point of differentiation? Are the only 2 things that matter if I'm going to part with money or crypto or time, which is the greatest currency. In my opinion, in my very humble opinion.
Wow, I think we're gonna leave it at that. Like that just blew, that just blew my mind. That's a retweet. That's a freaking clip right there. Yo, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Absolutely, anytime.
I appreciate